Alright. I have gotten a controller set up in VTube Studio. Everything should work just fine. In terms of the controller, at least. Oh, not nope. Okay, gotta open up borderless. Open borderless. Create profile. There we go. There we go. And then here we go. Alright. To no one's surprise, the leaked video of the group dive exploded. Grimm had told me that the entire internet was going insane. Lo and behold, he wasn't lying. A huge chunk of ad channel was now convinced that all 4 Nugent murders had been committed by the same person. Whose eyes are those eyes is the Nugent killer's signature move. The guy who upped it on YouTube has to be the perp. Whose eyes are those eyes is so freaking sweet. Okay, I'll report that immediately. Oh, whose eyes are... Guilty are. Whose eyes are those eyes? Was written out at the scene of the vampire, yeah? That means there's a connection between the first and the last case, despite all the people saying they had nothing to do with each other. Which then means that the man-child and crucifixion cases also have to be connected. Damn, can't wait too into this. Also, whose eyes are those eyes? First appearance was at the vampire case, so it couldn't possibly have copied the group dive. No, don't look. Look, smoke. Oh. Smoke wheat every day. Ah, yes, of course. The late 2000s, early 2010s. I know them well. I saw the video, but it looks fake as shit. Some actors just did it for views. I bet one Perica on it. You twats really ought to stop using whose eyes or whatever the fuck so often. Killer just wants attention and you're giving it to him. The same dude did all the Nugent murders? The tower in that vid's actually just 2 meters tall and there's a trampoline or something below it, Lamau. Agreed. That phrase keeps being a trend, if that phrase keeps being a trend, there will keep being more murders. Y'all need to tone it the fuck down. It's not just a meme anymore. Obligatory, don't look. YouTube video, it's topping the charts, view count, it's skyrocketing. It's so brutal. Don't look, guys. Lamau. Time to make the MHK News top report. Whoop! Anything from the perp behind the whose eyes are those eyes yet? Breaking news taking over every station. Woohoo! The news on TV was just as erratic. Like 140 had said, every available station save for TV had been interrupted by the breaking news where they played the leaked video on loop. The broadcast had lasted for about an hour. It was pretty shocking to see that footage actually been broadcast across the entire country. Of course, all the stations censored the part where they dived off the building at the end, but it was still extremely impactful. The opinions of those on TV were more or less the exact same as everyone's online. They all attributed the 4 Nugent cases to the same culprit. Then again, that wasn't really much of a surprise. They had finally found a common denominator between them after all. Whose eyes are those eyes? It had become a popular phrase all throughout Shibuya. The phrase had first been shown to the world when the details behind the 4th case of the vampire were shared. People then learned that the victims of the group dive had said it as well, even though it had occurred a month before the vampire case. And the 4 incidents that had occurred so far, it had been used in both the first and the last one. It had to mean something. It made the theory that a single person was behind the murders all the more probable. The police then held a press conference stating they intended to identify the person who had posted the video as soon as they could. A number of politicians commented that the actions of the culprit were clearly deplorable and that they needed to be apprehended immediately. The YouTube video had been removed by a moderator less than 3 hours after it was uploaded, but by then it was too late. Our channel had already gotten their hands on it, and from there, nothing could have stopped it from being re-uploaded and spreading like wildfire. And then, just before midnight, the following facts had been revealed through a police statement. The group dive video was uploaded from a computer located in a Shibuya manga cafe known as At Cafe. It was uploaded from a specific private room in the facility. Room number 37. What the fuck? Ha. 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 Aha. Alright. I sat paralyzed in my seat, my head hanging low as I hugged myself tightly. Without realizing it, I had started eavesdropping. I was becoming hypersensitive to the voices coming from my surroundings. I overheard a lot of certain conversations, and unsurprisingly, the group dive video was the topic on everyone's minds. Some girls were even jokingly saying to each other, whose eyes were those eyes? I bit my lip and let my gaze wander onto the surface of my desk. That video was evidence. Evidence that Shogun actually existed. Evidence that I hadn't killed anyone. It proved that I didn't have multiple personalities, that the old-looking man in a wheelchair was a Delusion killer. But why would Shogun even upload it? Why would he hint at himself being the killer when the culprit's identity had been shrouded in mystery so far? Only two explanations made sense to me. One, Shogun was showing off by killing people because it amused him, which was pretty likely considering that time when he'd appeared in front of me. Or, two, he was trying to provoke me. For some reason, Shogun and his underling Yua were doing everything in their power to fuck with me. I didn't know the reason why, I just knew that they were trying to frame me as the new gen culprit. At this point, even the police were probably suspicious of me. Shogun was trying to corner me.
僕のメッセージは受け取ってくれた。目覚めるんだ。早く。でないと。もっとたくさんの人が死んじゃうことになるから。忘れないで。君は逃げちゃいけない。
When he'd appeared in front of me, that was what he said. It felt like he'd been trying to intimidate me, and that he was basically saying, I'm gonna kill you too, don't you dare run away. Now he totally blindsided me by uploading that video and making sure that it spread all throughout Japan. There was no doubt that Shogun had moved his plan to the next phase. It had been naive to think that I wasn't being targeted anymore. If anything, it would be more accurate to say that his plotting against me had moved from passive to active. It was now finally in full swing. I was terrified, especially with that video. Shogun had killed 5 high schoolers without even lifting a finger, despite being even worse off physically than me. If all the Nugent cases were actually his doing, then all those other gruesome murders, the manchild, crucifixion, and vampire, had they all been enacted by that very same frail body? Or maybe Yua had helped him out. In any case, I didn't have any faith that I'd be able to defend myself against people who would commit such horrible atrocities. Just thinking of them sent chills down my spine, chills that combined with the red-hot anger I was feeling. How was I being targeted like this? What did I do to deserve it? And there was also that message. Whose eyes are those eyes? If I wasn't careful, I would start trembling uncontrollably. To keep that under control, I had to keep my body from relaxing. I had to always be aware of my surroundings and be ready to bolt the second I sensed someone approaching. I didn't know when Shogun or Yua would show themselves again. No, I had no guarantee that Yua was Shogun's only underling. Maybe even my own classmates were under his influence, their laughter and idle chatter acting as mere camouflage until just the right moment. I had to find a way to parry surprise attacks like the one in Nat Cafe yesterday. If I didn't, I'd be killed next time for sure. I needed to get a D-sword ASAP. The only way out of this was to get a D-sword. I'd internalized what Ayase and Senna had said, and I'd searched online about it, and it all had me convinced. Getting my hands on a D-sword would save me. The night before, I desperately tried to gather information on D-swords while keeping an eye on the new gen chipset. My research barely bore any results. I cradled my head, tearing at my greasy hair. How was I supposed to find a D-sword? Ayase had said that, but it was barely even a hint. It comes from within, you fool. That's what she was saying. My thoughts weighed heavily on me. I was starting to freak out. My heart was steadily getting crushed by anxiety. I needed to hurry and find a D-sword. Whatever it took, I had to find one. If I didn't, I'd be done for. Before becoming Nugent's next victim, I had to find one. But I needed to find out how. I had no clue how you were supposed to get one. I needed some kind of hint, something, anything. I had to figure it out fast, or I'd lose my chance at finding it. Was I even capable of finding one? This was no time to be at school. It was my own life or graduating. I didn't need to debate which one was more important. And yet, why was I... Sensing someone approaching me, I quickly raised my head and braced myself for contact. Ha! Rimi was standing there, blinking repeatedly, as if she'd been stunned by my sudden movements. I made you jump? Stop scaring me like that. All the stress in my body released at once, and I crumpled on top of my desk with a big sigh. Fulfilling her usual quota, Rini peered into my face. I hurriedly lowered my eyes. Was Remy with me or against me? An ally or an enemy? After she'd saved me, I'd grown a lot less wary of her. But there was still a ton of unanswered questions I had yet to figure out. Like why she'd been covered in blood at the scene of the crucifixion. Or how we were supposed to be such good friends and we'd been classmates since our first year, yet I had no recollection of it. Remy tilted her head slightly, a worried expression on her face. I turned away from her. I couldn't say it to her face. When the classes for the day finally ended, I felt like every ounce of energy had been drained from my body. Even during class, all I'd done was remain on high alert, repeatedly scanning my surroundings. I hadn't slept since yesterday, but staying this vigilant kept me wide awake. The school day felt like an eternity, and the sheer amount of time I'd spent there sent me spiraling into a deep depression. Why is it that the way we perceive time changes depending on our mood? Some would say that time flows at a constant rate, but that might not actually be true. The speed of time changes depending on each person's subjective perspective. I've always theorized that it's a conspiracy to homogenize humanity's understanding of the concept of time by implementing units like seconds and hours. Also, they can deceive people into forgetting that perception of time varies from person to person. And building off that theory, if the length of time is dependent on each person's perception, then conversely, doesn't that mean that the flow of time can be controlled at will? As I thought about that, I remembered Senna talking about controlling other people's wills. And conversely,
生まれながらに目が不自由な人でも目の前にある景色がちゃんと見えるようになる。ビデオカメラのような映像機器を介してな。
Video data from a camera is converted into electrical signals that are sent directly to the brain, causing the person to observe that sequence of images. Firstly, that would mean converting the images that a person observes into electrical signals and sending them to equipment that can render video. The aforementioned equipment didn't have to be a video camera either. For example, what would happen if you connected a person to a hard disk recorder and showed them recordings of someone's vacation? What if instead of real-life recordings, you showed them an anime? Technically, anime is 2D and therefore delusionary. But people who are blind from birth have never seen anything from the 3D world, so that they are shown an anime and told this is how the world is, and they would believe that the 2D world is reality, right? To that person, that delusion would be their reality, a delusion perceived as reality. Here's another example. If person A sent an image from their brain to a hard disk recorder that processed it, transmitted the image to person B's brain, then person A's delusion would become person B's reality. Delusion becoming reality. In theory, it was possible. Holy shit, I was a genius. I was over the moon by how brilliant my theory was. Maybe that was how I'd acquired e-sword. I say had said they had something to do with delusions, hadn't she? Alright, I should hurry up and go home so I can look it up. I stood up abruptly, threw my bag over my shoulder, and looked toward the door to the classroom. Uh-oh. Only to find her standing there, looking at me. Why are you screaming in the classroom, boy? I instinctively screamed. At least half of my classmates were still in the classroom, and one of their icy gazes pierced me at once. Yep. That's why I was like, why? Stop it. Run. Don't look at me. Run away. Please don't look at me. Get out of here. In a pure state of panic, I blew past my classmates and burst out of the classroom via the door Yua was standing at. With no real destination in mind, I found myself in the courtyard, but the second I set foot in it, I was hit by the strong urge to vomit. I tried to hold it back, but it was no use. I fell on my knees and out spewed the contents of my stomach. Huh. Huh. Naruhodo. The stomach acid made my throat burn. My vision blurred from tears. It was hard to breathe. The aftertaste was absolutely vile. I must have been way more maxed than I thought I was. Might have been because of the all-nighter I'd pulled. As I wiped the corners of my mouth, I looked all around me restlessly. But I couldn't see a soul. However, the shadowy corners and the blind spots I had never usually paid attention to had become terrifying to me. I began to think that you and Shogun might be hiding in them. The second my brain came up with that, I could no longer take a single step. Someone save me. I wanted to cry. I felt nauseous all over again. I didn't end up vomiting, but I dry-heaved several times. The pain made me cry even harder. I was nearly sobbing at this point. But then, suddenly, someone's hand began to gently rub my back. Terrified, I turned around. Rimi. Oh. Rimi was there. I wasn't being condemned for feeling this way. No, her words were a tender affirmation. Aw. Didn't even so much as grimace at the smell of my vomit. I mean, everyone vomits at least once in their life, right? It's not exactly something you can control. So, yeah. She didn't show any signs of disdain when she saw my face covered in tears or snot, nor when she saw the vomit still clinging to the corners of my mouth. She simply gave me a gentle smile, reassuring me that it would all be okay. She drew closer to me. She continued rubbing my back gently. I wasn't that before, and even now. Every time I thought I needed to be saved, Rimi would always heroically appear in front of me. Right now, Rimi was right here. It reassured me. I felt better. Before I even realized what was happening, my true feelings began to pour out. Despite the fact that I never talked about myself. Huh. Maybe that was why I bothered coming to school. Up until now, I'd always thought that I'd be way better off alone. Lamau! Not a true introvert. Ha! I can last a long while alone. Maybe because I have all this. Games. And other stuff. Anime. Movies. And of course, Discord. Of course, even now, it was still terrifying to talk to others. I wasn't at all confident in my ability to actually talk to anyone, but I am confident in my ability to talk to people. I just don't feel like it most of the time. Nor do I see a reason to most of the time. So, with Shogun and Yua trying to destroy my life, I had never been so anxious, scared, and alone. I wanted someone to be there for me. It didn't even need to be nice to me. Just wanted someone to be present. Those words held no ill will, no hesitation, no irresolution. Her shy gaze suddenly moved up toward the sky. Her eyes were looking so far away. Just what could she be looking at in that sky? Was that kind of almost like being in a relationship? I was stunned. He was completely serious. You could see her down her face. Because like if I had ever seen one, right? Because I love you, Taku. I could see it coming from a mile away. It had to be what she was going to say, right? I don't know, man. This visual novel does tend to go against that if you're expecting it. Granted, I had no clue why Rimi would have fallen for me. No, wait. This shit had to be bait. Something similar had happened before with Yua. With her, it had all been for nothing. It all been nothing more than deception, and it was me drowning in the depths of despair. So I couldn't get my hopes up. I had to prepare for the worst. It was possible that Rimi too was Huh? She suddenly saluted me. I was taken aback by the suddenness of it, and my mind shot to the possibility that she was about to reveal her true self. And yet, all that I saw on Rimi's face was that same bright, gentle smile. Of course. Exactly. What the heck were you thinking about, Taku? Friends. She said so to begin with. Ah. Huh. Because we were friends. If she'd said because I love you, Taku, and this is how I'm gonna show it, it would have felt like my life had begun anew. But even if we'd be friends, that alone made me incredibly happy. Having someone being kind to me, having someone do things for me without expecting anything in return, I couldn't believe how happy it made me. It might have been the very first time I'd ever felt like that. But above all else, it made me realize that I wasn't alone. Me, Rumi's existence was my salvation. The nausea I'd felt earlier had finally subsided and I was feeling much better. Rumi held out a vermilion handkerchief. It had a faint floral scent. I meekly accepted it, but I was hesitant to use it. Huh. I mean, handkerchiefs are made to be used, my guy. What other purpose is there? I felt guilty about it, but I ultimately decided that I would accept her generosity. I wiped off the vomit that had stained the corners of my mouth with a handkerchief. It was the first time I had ever received a present from a girl that wasn't a family member. I wasn't so sure about calling it a present, though. For me, someone who was so isolated and helpless, even a simple thing like this felt like an irreplaceable treasure to me. I felt so delighted, so relieved, and then I nearly started to cry all over again. Her voice was so carefree. Apparently, she already intended to make good on that, what she'd said before. That she'd stay by my side. Not that I told her whether I wanted her to or not yet. But it wasn't like I had any intention of saying no. Being alone terrified me. I didn't want to be alone. As I was now, I had no one to rely on but Rimi. However, I still couldn't say that I was stable now, even with Rimi with me. On the way back, I chose to take a different route than usual, walking cautiously all the way. I couldn't stop trembling. Every corner with even an inch of shadow seemed dangerous. Every time I got to any kind of intersection, I was tormented by delusions of Yua or Shogun, waiting for me at the end of it, making me freeze in place. Whenever that happened, Rimi would take over. She would look over toward the end of the intersecting road, and when the coast was clear, she'd nod to me. Relieved, I followed after her. Everything she'd done without even a hint of irritation. I was slightly hesitant to tell her. If I said something here, Rimi could become a target for Shogun. I would get her involved.
話すよ。
My mouth had already started moving. I definitely didn't feel comfortable with the prospect of getting her involved, but if I didn't explain to her what was happening here, she wouldn't be able to understand the gravity of the situation. So, within a few streams, I should be getting a bad end. Huh? Then, of course, the rest is a common route. For the sake of my well-being, I had to turn a blind eye to the possibility that it might put her in danger. She'd been the one who had said that she'd stay by my side, so I was sure she'd be fine with it, so I told her everything. I told her that Shogun was the actual new-gen culprit. That Iwa was one of his underlings. Well, you think she's one of his underlings. I doubt it, myself. That they were both stalking me. What had happened in front of 107 the other day. I laid it all bare, albeit not without a fair share of stuttering. I told her about the time Shogun appeared before her in a wheelchair. Rimi's lips pursed and she began to ponder. I always wondered who to ask her about back then. It seemed like now was as good a time as any. You certainly didn't sound like she had.
思い出して。大切なことだ。
でも
Amy frowned, almost like she was hesitant to say what was on her mind.
そもそもあの時渋谷の駅前が無人だったなんてことなかったよ。いつもと同じだった。
So that was what Rimi had seen back then. I was hoping that she and I would agree on what we'd seen, but I guess not. Rimi, or me, which one of us had seen what the area was actually supposed to look like? Had I been wrong about what I had seen after all? And that empty Shibuya had been nothing more than a delusion of mine? But if it was a small discrepancy. An old man had appeared in that empty Shibuya, Shogun. What was the explanation for that? If the Shibuya being empty part was delusion, then Shogun could be a delusion as well.
駅前って人が多いでしょ。だから車椅子の人がいてもなかなか気がつかないだろうし。要するに見てないってこと。ごめんね、役に立てなくて。
At the very least, I knew Shogun himself wasn't the delusion. At first, I had thought he was just a delusion, but ever since the group dive video had come out, my perception of him had swapped to the exact opposite. Shogun was real, he existed in reality. But that empty Shibuya, meanwhile, it could have been just a delusion. And in reality, the front of the station had been overflowing with people, just like it always was. I was the only one who had observed something different, a different set of scenery than everyone else. But how could that be possible?
ねえ、それよりお願いがあるんだけど、いい
Rimi. He joined her hands together in a prayer-like
CD
gesture.
を買いに行きたいんだ。せっかくここまで来たからちょっと寄っていきたいんだけど。いいかな。
I really wanted to get back to my base as soon as possible. The reason I had taken such a long detour was because I was afraid of the possibility that Iwa or Shogun might have been ready to ambush me. It wasn't so I could go on some shopping spree. But if I were to refuse after all that, she might end up going back on her promise to stay by my side. If I were to fuck up badly enough, she could get angry and leave by herself. What the hell should I do? This sucked. I needed Rimi to stay with me. I wasn't sure I could make it to my base alone. In the end, I wasn't able to refuse. So I did what I had to in order to survive and stuck as close as possible to her. I guess it was reasonable to think that Io wouldn't attack me in a public place like this. I was more afraid that they might have been hiding among the crowd. Every time I would almost bump into someone, I was screaming inside my head.
パトカーだ。
What? Oh no. They're still monitoring him. Yeah. Amy's words frightened me. I quickly retreated behind her. Ah. Amy was right. There were 2 police cars parked on the road. Right next to them were 3 police officers in uniform. The police had also been pursuing me. Obviously, that basis behind it was a completely false accusation, but the incompetent police didn't know that. Those cops might have been searching for me, too. Or so I thought, but that apparently wasn't the case. The cops' gazes were fixed on the crowd of people marching down the street like they owned it. Were they protesters or something? They were carrying these giant signs and flags, and they were wearing the typical sashes and headbands you'd see among those kinds of people. There was a child marching along with his parents, holding hands with both of them. He looked like he had no idea where he was. And he was wearing a t-shirt with the words, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" written on it in permanent marker. I bit my lip.
何のデモだろうね。
People marching were all of all ages and genders. Their march was mostly silent and solemn, but at times they all echoed their chants. Drive the devil out of Shibuya. Expel demons from this place.
悪魔？
On the signs were a number of different things, such as drive the devil out of town or protect Shibuya from terrorists. It must have been some kind of protest against the Nugent incidents. There was no point in protesting against that. If they had the time to do that, then could they please just hunt down Shibuya and hunt down a shogun and kill him? Then I wouldn't need to worry about him anymore.
タク、行こう。
What? Clearly uninterested, Rimi turned her gaze away from the protesters and quickly started walking toward the entrance to the CD shop. As soon as we entered the shop, Rimi headed straight toward the indie section. Unlike the J-pop section, there weren't many customers there. Rimi stopped in front of a shelf piece and started looking for the CD she wanted. But after a minute of browsing, her shoulders slumped.
やっぱりないな。
An indie group whose name started with P. Could that be... Oh! Phantasm?
タクはファンタズムってバンドを知ってる？
Ah!
今話題になってるけど。
So it was them. How could I not know them? I'd even gone to see their concert. I now owned a CD. I nodded at Rimi smiled.
私、そういう情報は結構疎くて、最近になって知ったんだ。それで、友達に借りようかと思ったんだけど、なかなか手に入らないらしくて、誰も持ってないんだよ。だから、CD 買うしかないかなって思って、ここ1週間ぐらいあちこち探してみたんだけど、どこも売り切れ中。次はいつ入るんだろう。
僕持ってる。
What? Rimi's eyes went wide.
持ってるって CD?
Yeah! I showed her a nod. When I did that, Rimi... put her hands on my shoulders. She suddenly brought her face in closer to mine, which immediately made me flustered. The sweet smell of shampoo wafting from Rimi's hair tickled my nose, and I felt my face turning red.
ねえタク、取引しよう。
A
その
deal.
CD 貸してくれたら、見返りに私。
She looked at me, her expression dead serious. Like, oh, she what? What was she going to do? She was lost in thought. She probably didn't have anything in mind yet.
見返りなんていらない。
それって貸してくれないっていうこと？
Amy's shoulders drooped in disappointment. What do you mean?
そっか。
That's not what he meant.
残念。
いや違うよ。見返りなんて必要ないってこと。普通に貸すよ。
タク。
Ah. A big smile shot onto her face. She looked incredibly happy. She looked like she was halfway ready to glop me. I couldn't say I made girls happy very often, so it inadvertently made me happy too. Also, a fictional unit of currency that appears in a certain manga. The ODR. Okay. I was glad I had been brave enough to say it.
ビシッ。じゃあ見返りなしで借ります。となれば善は急げ。タクの家にレッツゴー。
I managed to make it back to base safely. Thanks to Rimi, of course. One thing ended up catching me off guard, though. When we arrived, I asked her to wait outside while I cleaned my room, but she flat out refused.
だって前に来た時に汚いっていうのはよーく分かったし、今さら片付けたって無駄だよ。
Ha!
かっこつけなくてもいいって、私とタクの中でしょね。
I'd say that's fair. Yeah, but I wish I knew what exactly that meant. Rimi was completely absent from my memory, meaning I didn't really know her. Every once in a while, I'd find myself taken aback at how ridiculously friendly Rimi was whenever she talked to me. It wasn't unpleasant or anything, but it only made it all the more clear how different we felt about each other. On that particular note, was Rimi serious about there being no point in me cleaning my room? The floor was littered with empty box lunches, and the bed was piled high with irrigate cases. Irrigate cases was not exactly the most safe for work cover art. Either Rimi had nerves of steel, or she had no reason to feel on edge around me. Trying to figure out which it was, only made me feel even more confused. Rimi, unaware of how distressed I was, went to sit on the sofa, looking earnestly over the lyric booklet included in the Phantasm CD. I plopped down in my chair, and the tension flooding my body left soon after. My mind was completely maxed after spending most of the day terrified, yet I wasn't feeling that exhausted. Maybe that was thanks to Rimi being there.
さて、どうしよっか。
Huh. Closing the lyric booklet, Rimi stretched her arms out high and sent a smile my way. What should we do? What were we supposed to do? She hadn't come here to hang out or anything. She just wanted me to lend her a CD. She was doing me a favor by staying with me, but what the hell were we supposed to actually do? Did we have to do anything? If we were in an Aragay, we'd probably jump straight into an H scene, but... Wait, stop. I really shouldn't be thinking about that right now. Thank you, Taku. Thank you. Even under the best circumstances, it was still a really tense situation. Being alone in my room with a 3D girl and all. If I were to have some unwelcome delusions, I might suddenly shoot back to reality and end up saying something weird. Thank you, Taku, for realizing this. Silence. Rimi was staring vacantly at the various manga scattered on the floor, and the Aragay piled up on the bed. Awkward. I knew that most of the awkwardness would dissipate if I just said something, but the only subjects I could think of were video games and anime, and I doubted that Rimi knew anything about it either. Wouldn't it be more logical for me to say something? She was the one who had said she'd stay with me and all. Though this was going to be a bad time if she actually expected me to lead the conversation. Jesus Christ, I really did suck with theater, you girls. I was grateful to her for staying with me, but I couldn't handle the sheer, unrelenting silence. The fact that the room barely had any light was also an issue. It gave off the illusion that the room was dark for some lewd reason. Unable to take it anymore, I turned to face my PC. I need to look up something. I'd been thinking about it at school. It might end up giving me a hint as to how I'd get my hands on a D-sword. It's possible to translate images pictured in the mind to actual images. Using what Senna had told me about VR technology and people being electronic devices as base, I began researching the subject. He stood up and approached my desk. Should I explain? But how to go about it? It'd take forever if I told her everything. Seeing no reaction from me, Rimi poked me in the back with her finger. I couldn't just ignore her, right? Yeah, it'd never be that easy. As I entered a few keywords in the search bar, I spoke without looking at Rimi. Instead, I pretended I was talking to Saratan. This is true. That's a good point, actually. Delusions created a world in which any action, no matter how unrealistic, was possible if they were to become reality. The unreal would become real, and reality would become reality.
それに近いシステムがアメリカで特許あるんだ。
冗談でしょ。
I could feel Rimi's doubtful scoff on my back. So in response, I showed her the image of the patent that Shiho had found for me. Be right back. Alright. Mary leaned forward and brought her face close to the monitor. And she was right up next to my face, peering intently at the screen. She was way too close. She was so close I could see the glittering of her eyes as they reflected the light of the monitor. I got flustered all over again. Seemed that it piqued her interest. I tried to avoid thinking about how close she was to me and attempted to focus on Saratan and the monitor instead.
VR 技術って言うんだよ。
もし本当だったらすごいな。
But it is. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Senna told me there's already been successful tests.
でも機械を使って目が見えるようになるのと妄想が現実になるってどうつながるの？ 私頭悪いからよくわかんないや。
As I explained it to Rimi, I tried searching for a number of keywords that might have been related, but I couldn't find anything. Even so, I kept on trying and typed more and more keywords.
機に映る景色も脳内で思い浮かべた妄想も電気信号だから。逆に考えるんだ。脳内に電気信号を送るんじゃなくて、脳内から電気信号を送るって考えるんだ。
ほほう。
All I got were filler responses. It was probably I didn't understand a thing I was saying. Probably. I couldn't be bothered trying to explain everything in detail, so I just stopped trying. I had to concentrate on my research. It didn't really matter if she understood it or not. After all, it was nothing more than a hypothesis I'd come up with. Rimi was still making noises and nodding to herself. Time to ignore her. I've been doing a whole lot of searching, but I still wasn't able to find any data to confirm my hypothesis. I tried taking a different approach this time, focusing my research on the patent itself. I went and checked a foreign website that Chiho had told me about, one that listed American patents. Once I was there, I began to look for patents that would fit what I had in mind. Aww. What this? Satellite to person to electric, and of course between an electric wave tower, between data processing station to receiver. After following a few links, I finally found an image with a similar vibe to the one Shio had sent me. At a glance, though, the patent was clearly different from the VR apparatus one. I should read it right away.
神経信号パルスを遠隔地からモニターし、それを映像および音声として再現する装置と方法。
That was exactly what I had in mind. I involuntarily leapt out of my chair.
すごいぞ。
すごいの？何が？
簡単に言うと、これ他人の思考を盗撮する技術だ。
思考を盗撮。
To sum it up, the audio and video people are imagining in their heads could be stolen by using a certain apparatus. Moreover, it even said that nerve impulses could be monitored from satellites. That meant it was possible to spy on a subject's thoughts no matter where they were on the planet.
本当にそんなことできるの？ SF 小説とかそういう類のものなんじゃ？
This is a sci-fi.
そのシステム自体が完全に仕上がってないと。
I don't know, man. They can make a patenter can make a kind of prototype, but it can also just never work. They, in theory, have something that, an idea that could work, but in practice, is the difference.
絶対に取得できないんだって。
Are you sure? That had been made clear to me when I had been looking up stuff about patents earlier.
だからこれもちゃんとシステムが確立されてるってことだよ。
This wasn't mere fiction. As long as you had the technological capabilities and the funds to build it, you could implement it any time. Before, Senna had told me that.
ある意図的な情報を神経パルスへコンバートすることが可能なら、人の五感すべて、さらには人の意志そのものもコントロールできるんじゃないか。
I couldn't find a source for that, so it remained as mere conjecture from her. However, for my own theory, there were sources. Why would something so insane not have spread all throughout Japan? This curry deserved a Nobel Prize, if not something even bigger. I continued my research, this time looking up the mind-reading keyword. Then I found a record of a particular lawsuit from America.
また英文だ。
Ha!
頭痛くなってきそうだよ。
It was a really long document, so even I had a hard time reading it. I probably would read poorly, but I decided to use a piece of English to Japanese translation software. Contents of what was written there could be summarized like this. Legal record. Plaintiff N.K. Raven. Defendant, the United States Department of Defense. CIA. Oh my god! The CIA! Plaintiff's allegations. I've become aware that my mind has been read via the use of a peculiar device. My moderate thoughts are then recorded and subsequently transferred to an unknown location using satellites. The aforementioned satellites have taken me hostage. I've been the victim of constant, unending attacks, regardless of the time of the day, all of which were carried out by those various satellites. 1. Tracing. 2. Mind reading / telepathic surveillance. 3. Monitoring of all bodily signals. 4. Biorhythmical attacks. 5. Oral attacks. 6. Physical debilitation. Since the latter third of December 1990, I have been forcefully shown artificially created dreams during my sleep, some of which include video, audio, and even voices. From February to May 1992, I have fallen victim to several biorhythmical attacks, all which served to torture me via the induction of pain and or psychological harassment. Recognizing that these attacks are aimed specifically toward myself, beginning in February of 1992, I began to record the following information in a journal: the date, time, and contents of any particular agonizing psychological attack I could remember. The biorhythmical attacks were aimed at every single region of my body. The pain, torture, and psychological harassments were coordinated in order to cause discomfort, fatigue, and agony to specific regions of my body, or in some cases, my entire body. The main regions affected are as follows: chest, visual system, abdomen, brain to induce sleeping disorders, brain to show me artificially created dreams.
思考監視、思考盗撮、しかも国家ぐるみ。マジ？
私これ知ってる。何年か前に映画で見た。
Ah. That was fiction, though. But what was written on these records very much wasn't. There were two possibilities: either the plaintiff was a total mental case, or the entire thing was factual. It was difficult to figure out where exactly the boundary between the two was. Taking into account the pattern from earlier, it could very well be truthful. So, if Senna and ISA weren't total mental cases, particularly ISA. Back then, ISA had cloned herself right before my very eyes. I hadn't witnessed the exact moment when it had happened. All I knew was that when I turned around, another ISA was there. She had also shown me how she pulled her used sword out of thin air. It had been neither a hallucination nor a delusion. After showing me something like that, there was no way I could still label her as a mental case. However, ISA had also said this. That strange phenomenon, had it been my delusion coming to fruition?
力を持つ人の耳しか映らない。君には私の剣が見えているでしょう。それが意味するのは一つだけ。
Maybe that was what ISA had been talking about when she'd mentioned the power. A power that projected delusions into reality. Maybe Haya had that power. Oh. No. I was probably just jumping to conclusions. was a total stretch to think that a psychic ability existed just because a system using scientific means, was able to reproduce delusions as
見つけ
images.
なくちゃいけない。自分自身で。方法は
Comes from within!
私にもわからないのよ。
But what if the method to obtain a D-sword was by using such a psychic ability? So let's suppose I had that ability within me. Might have been worth a try. Yes! He believes! Let's go! I picked up the toy D-sword to see in the corner of my room. I went to stand in the center of my room and brought my sword to eye level like I was an ESO character. Alright, I just needed to picture an image of sword in my head. He was looking at me. Our eyes met. Ha! Ha! He was grinning at something. I could feel my face turning red. As per my usual habit, I held up the sword as if I were alone in this room. Must have been pretty painful to look at from Rimi's perspective. He completely forgot about Rimi. I want to die. I calmed down and lowered the sword. I was too embarrassed to look at her. I'd rather not dig myself any deeper than I already had. I can only hope that she'd be gracious enough to pretend she hadn't seen it. If she did, I'd even be willing to get down on my hands and knees for her. My thoughts were then interrupted by Rimi striking the final blow.
ねえねえ、チャンバラごっこ？
Ah. I shook my head no.
いつもそういうことしてるの？
Once again, I shook my head.
今日が初めて？
Rimi! Rimi! Please! This time, I nodded.
チャンバラごっこの相手役、私がしようか？よくわからないけど。
I shook my head vehemently. I'm telling you, I'm not playing samurai.
贅沢。どうしてこっち見てくれないのかな？
Isn't it obvious? I'm embarrassed, damn it. You saw something you should never have seen. The pure pain and suffering a man underwent when his girlfriend found his porn stash. It must have been comparable to what I was going through right now.
タクってさ。
Oh no, did she hate me now? I don't know if I could ever recover from that. I had to clear up the misunderstanding.
かわいいね。
Ah!
かなりキュンときちゃったな。今のは。
Ah! Mimi was writhing in delight as she tightly hugged the Serotan buddy pillow that sat on my chair. I thought she was going to make fun of me, but judging from her attitude, she seemed to mean what she'd said. In other words, Riri had just unintentionally mowed over me. I felt relieved. She didn't hate me, thank goodness.
そもそもそれ、どこで買ってきたの？高かったんじゃない？
1万円。
$100 bucks
雑貨屋
in
で
those days. And more like $70 now.
へえ、1万円か。安いのか高いのかわからないけど。でもそんな大きなおもちゃが普通に売ってるんだね。私そんな大きなのを直接見たのって初めて。その雑貨屋さんに売ってるっていうのは誰かに教えてもらったの？
She really wasn't gonna let it go. Was she interested in these kinds of swords or something? Irimi was actually a total chinibyo in disguise. Someone who'd been making fun of me for having a sword actually wanted one herself? Didn't very much.
自分で調べた。ネットで。
ネットか。
Aww.
すごいな。何でも情報が手に入るんだね。私は全然ダメ。パソコンなんてろくに使えないよ。で、その剣って流行ってるの？
なんで？
タクは どうしてそれを買おうと思ったのかなって。
Huh? Yeah, I should just tell her the truth. She was going to say by myself moving forward. Maybe she'd end up helping me search for a real V sword in the future. If that was the case, it might be better to just tell her everything now and get it out of the way.
これは偽物だけど、本物があるんだ。
本物？
Rimi tilted her head, puzzled.
本物を持ってる人、僕知ってるんだ。
Taku.
二人いる。同じ学校の女子。
女子ね。女の子がこんなおもちゃを欲しがるかな。
本当なんだ。それにおもちゃじゃない。
あ、ごめん。
本物は光るんだ。それにすごい存在感で。
Taku, you're losing her.
僕それを探してる。それさえ手に入れれば僕は救われるんだ。
救われるって。
Taku, you're losing her. You looked quite puzzled, but I was dead serious. Not to mention a D-sword would be a powerful tool to confront Shogun.
それで
I wanted to say that I needed her help to find it. However, when I thought about what I could even do if she said no, I grew too scared and anxious to say anything. I dropped the fake sword on the spot and sat down on the sofa. With a sigh, I closed my eyes. Would Rumi offer me her help in order to find it? If she did, everything would turn out okay. But I knew how unrealistic it was to expect her to go that far. Up until now, Rumi had always come dashing to my rescue whenever I was in a tough spot. Almost like she could read my mind. In that case, then maybe I...
とにかく、もし本物があったとしても、それこそ買ったりしちゃダメだよ。今タクが持ってるのはおもちゃだからいいけど、本物ってことは銃刀法違反になっちゃうんだから。
Taku, you didn't fully explain it to her. This is the end result, Taku. My hopes were crushed instantly. Ugh, what an insane disappointment. Again, Rimi's reaction made sense from the POV of an average person. These past few weeks, I'd encountered so many inexplicable things I was nearly at the point where I was ready to believe everything that Sen and ISA had said. Maybe ISA was right. I had to find a D-sword entirely on my own.
それでタク、
I felt Rimi sit down next to me.
その本物の剣を持ってる女子って誰かな？
Her voice came from very close by. She was right next to me. It was just the two of us in an enclosed, dimly lit room, and we were sitting right next to each other. Emergency. Everyone, battle stations, emergency!
タクに女子の知り合いが私以外にいたなんてちょっとびっくり。もしかして彼女？
So that was where she was going with this. Could it be Rimi was trying to seduce me? The only possible conversation that could result from this topic was one centered on romance. After I told her the truth, she'd give me her confession, and then the mood would start getting really hot and heavy, and then... Oh god, I couldn't do this. I wasn't even remotely prepared for this. I opened my eyes and frantically shook my head. Both ISA and Senna were mysterious creatures, not to mention absolute mental cases. Schizo didn't even begin to describe them. I'd have mullied over them if they were 2D characters, but I'd never mully over 3D shit. Especially with Senna. Talking to her just scared me. Wouldn't surprise me if violence was just part of her MO. I wanted to stay as far away from her as possible.
そっか。ちょっと安心したかな。
Aww. The flag trip! Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. should be... Hold on. Oh shit, I am getting quite close to the end of the chapter 5. Well, this is fine. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. My whole body froze in place. She clearly said that on purpose, right? Well, was she subtly hitting on me right now? Judging from the flow of this conversation, there was a good chance Remy had me right where she wanted me. How should I answer? Should I just come out and say exactly what she wanted to hear? Yeah, surely nothing bad could come from that. But I wasn't sure I had the confidence to go out with a real girl. I was at a loss about what to do, so I opted to subtly examine Remy's expression. Come on. Sitting like that was cheating. And while she was clearly wearing a miniskirt, she was also holding her knees as she sat, so, I can see your panties, Sakihata-san. I just see a butt. Kinda. Actually, depending on the angle, it almost looked like she was completely commando. Bruh. Like right here. But she isn't. There we go. Against my better judgment, my eyes directed themselves to the home of her thighs, the V-zone. I desperately called forth my rational side to suppress my lust. The way she was sitting. It reminded me of the cover of a classic moe eroge, titled Free Sister. In the limited edition of its anime adaptation, there was an illustration with the heroine sitting exactly as Irimi was now. Think of those boxes labeled Free Kittens. That illustration was irresistibly moe. I'd even had it as my piece of wallpaper for a while. But, oh god, I was acting suspicious, wasn't I? Although, to be fair, the 3D girl was sitting on her knees and tilting her head as she looked right at me. What was I supposed to do? If she kept acting so cute, I was gonna die of moe overdose, even though she wasn't even 2D. In contrast to my blatantly libido-fueled thoughts, the words Shumi spoke were...
Taku wa, 自分の未来を考えたことある?
Aww.
例えば、人を含めて全ての生き物は生きてるだけで何かを傷つけてるんだよ。
This is true. She looks very deep in thought. Was she trying to say... shit. Did it say something here?
だから
ね。無理しないでいいからね。
Did she mean I didn't need to force myself to go to school? And I should stop playing ESO beyond what was reasonable, stop being a total addict, and try to live a healthier lifestyle? Or was she implying that I shouldn't hold back whenever I was struck with lust, and to let my instincts take hold? Well, I doubt it was that last one. Mary stretched as far as she could, then eagerly rose to her feet. The hem of her skirt fluttered in front of my face.
私、喉乾いてきちゃった。何か飲み物ある?
I stood up and headed toward the fridge. I peeked inside. I had some half-finished cola, but I drank directly from the bottle, so it probably wouldn't be the best idea to give it to
ない
Remy.
なら買ってこようかな。コンビニって深センの駅前にあったよね。
I felt Remy stand up behind me.
ちょっと行ってくる。
Oh. Okay. She gave me a big smile, then left without waiting for my response. Phew, being alone with a girl really did make me nervous. Especially with how Remy sometimes did things that made my heart skip a beat, whether she was aware of it or not. Though in all honesty, she probably wasn't. What the fuck are you sniffing? What the fuck are you sniffing? I sucked in the lingering scent in the air. Okay. Okay, good. Ugh. But still, that's weird. Bro, I could sense the remnants of a floral scent wafting through the room. This was the smell of a girl. Rini's smell.
最低だ。
Yes, you. I'm glad he recognizes that. But smell. I was thinking of pronouncing it like that, even if he didn't have it spelled like that. I sat in my chair, dejected at how long I'd sunk, and unable to do anything but cringe at my vulgar deed. I should be terrified of Shogun and Yua, but here I was soaking in complete ecstasy. While Remy went out shopping, I went back to researching the pattern and mind reading. Then when I reached my computer, I noticed that Grim had entered the chat room and was looking for me. You there, Nightheart? Hello, Nightheart. Meeting as usual, I see. Come on, kid, chat with me, please. Seriously, I've got new info. Nightheart-chan, dinner's ready. I sighed and reluctantly entered the chat room. Look who finally decided to show up. You're too so, Nightheart. Thanks to that, I'd entered Whose Eyes Were Those Eyes mode. Damn it, the fuck was Whose Eyes Are Those Eyes mode? Grim obviously just wanted to use that phrase for the hell of it. Even though he knew I hated seeing that goddamn thing. I always freak out whenever I saw it. What kind of new info? New gen, obviously. It happened, bro. Fifth case!
また
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I already know what this one is gonna be. Cause I spoiled it for myself a little bit. Of course, I felt the usual depression I always felt whenever I heard about New Gen. But on the other hand, I was also bewildered. I was sure that Shogun and Yua would target me this time. My fate had been delayed, it seemed, so I wasn't sure whether or not to be happy about that. Want to know the deets? It's on the Taboo homepage. A quick search should tell you everything. What time today did it happen? Not today. They found the body last night. Victim died the day before. This time was seriously insane. The dead guy's brains were removed. Without warning, Grim started telling me the details of the case, and I began to panic. I was beyond done with all this gory shit. I didn't want to hear about any of it. If I got word of it, I might imagine myself getting brutally murdered in the same way. Even though I still hadn't found out how to get a D-sword. And yet, Grim continued mercilessly. It's seriously freaky, dude. What do you think the cause of death was? Drumroll, please. Emaciation. Which means he was alive even after his brains were removed. The repulsiveness of it all sent chills down my spine. I wrapped my arms around my body. I didn't want to hear any more. Spare me, please. I'm begging you. My life already went to shit a long time ago, so please. Probably he was in a state kind of like brain death. He might have even been like that for over a week, just sitting there brainless. He obviously couldn't eat or drink. It's no wonder they died of emaciation. Chat channel already named the case. Numbskull, if now. Netizens really are epic at names. Okay, so this part's hilarious. Get this. The victim was a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist had their brains removed. Actually, with WTF Lamau levels of irony, a psychiatrist. The moment I saw the word, my heart rate skyrocketed. I might have been overthinking it, but I had to check, to make certain. I also didn't want to. After hesitating on and off for a while, I eventually went to the homepage of Taboo, opened up the news article reporting on the numbskull incident. Early morning on the 23rd, the body of 41-year-old Takashina Fumio. RIP. Well, this guy's never getting therapy. Was discovered in the streets of Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. Well, this reminds me that I've seen a psychiatrist just last Friday. Because I needed someone who would prescribe me Adderall for my ADHD. The victim, Dr. Takashina, was a psychiatrist at A.H. Tokyo General Hospital, also founded in Shibuya Ward. The TMPD have released the cause of death, stating the man died via emaciation due to his severe malnutrition. As well as this, Dr. Takashina's head was found to have received a clean cut along the top of the skull, and his brain was removed. The authorities claim it is possible that he survived in a state akin to brain death long after the removal of his brain. The investigation revealed that Dr. Takashina had not shown up to work ever since the 10th of this month. Ever since last month, Shibuya Ward has received immense publicity regarding the string of grotesque murders known as the New Generation Madness. The Shibuya Police Station and the Police Department are investigating these murders on the possibility that they have all been committed by the same culprit.
なんてことだ。なんて。
The victim's name was Takashina Fumio. Dr. Takashina. Dr. Takashina had been killed. He was provoking me. Shogun was blatantly provoking me. To do that, he'd killed the only doctor I could rely on, just to set an example.
そんな。助けて、誰か助けてくれ。
I let out a scream. My mind was in complete disarray. I felt like I was on the brink of snapping. I mean, you should be back any time now, right?
やだ。死にたくないよ、死にたくない。リミ、助けて。
I searched for Rimi. I frantically looked around the room over and over. She wasn't there. Why wasn't she there? Because she just went out shopping. I lay down on the ground, clutching my head.
助けて、リミ。助けてよ。どこにも行かないで。頼むよ。
What? Oh! Holy! Someone responded to me. Shocked, I looked up to find Rimi standing right beside me, holding a convenience store bag.
リミ
She'd come back. Thank goodness. Relieved, I held out my hand. Rimi crouched down and embraced my hand with both of her own. Her hands had been cool when she touched me before, but now they felt so unbelievably
こ
warm.
こにいる。私はここにいるから怯えないで。
Using her finger, Rimi wiped my tears away with a gentle smile. How pathetic could I be? I wasn't a man at all. Showing how terrified I was, crying and screaming all in front of a girl. And yet, even while knowing how pathetic I was, she still said that she would stay by my side. Right now, this warmth I felt was the only thing keeping my mind from shattering. Until I got a D-sword, I never wanted to let her go. Oh. Back to the detectives? Whenever night fell, Miyashita Park always found itself engulfed in a peculiar air. In the center of the park stood a large group of people packed together. There must have been no less than 100 of them. Most of them seemed to be in their teens, with some wearing high school uniforms, and others, particularly girls, wearing fashionable casual clothes. Within the crowd was an otaku-esque young man with glasses, and a ganguro high school girl, the latter of which was a fairly rare sight in this day and age. From an outsider's perspective, one would think that they were attending some kind of event, but upon closer inspection, it became clear that their behavior was anything but normal. They were all looking at the ground, their eyes unfocused and empty. Even though quite a number of people were gathered here, none of them conversed with each other. They simply stood there, frozen in place. Every last one of them wore the same faint smile, all while murmuring something under their breaths. A phrase that their whole bodies and minds were dedicated to saying, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" That phrase seeped from the mouths of the 100 people there. Despite their smiles, the chant rose as nothing more than a flat, emotionless murmur, echoing throughout the park like a Buddhist sutra. Naturally, due to the bizarre state the people were there or under, no one else was roaming Miyashita Park. A female office worker on her way home from work and a middle-aged woman walking her dog attempted to pass through, only to find themselves terrified by the strange sight and turning back the way they came. There was only a single man who was paying close attention to that peculiar group. First glance appeared that he too was part of the group, but in actuality he was standing alone, a few meters away from it. Concerning his choice in clothing, the man would have been blended in quite well in Akihabara. He wore a plaid shirt, deeply worn sneakers, mittens, a red bandana, and a large green rucksack. He was fairly corpulent, which made the buttons on his shirt appear as though they were about to come off. It was late into October, so while the air should have been quite cool, the man's forehead was covered in sweat. In constant war against the man attempted to wipe it away with a towel, but to no avail. He looked around restlessly, seemingly unable to calm down, and yet, from the way his shoulders moved, he almost appeared as if he was laughing. Ever since they had begun, accompanying the sutra-like chants, was a distinct mechanical sound, the origin of which was the man's rucksack. Another high schooler, this one wearing a blazer, entered the park. Instead of flinching at the sight of the peculiar group, she kept her eyes locked onto them as she steadily approached. The way she walked, her long black hair fluttering in the wind, gave off an aura of pure confidence and gallantry. And somewhat of a contrast to this, the girls carried a half-eaten popsicle in her hand. The group paid her no mind. They were completely absorbed in their own world, continuing to repeat the same phrase over and over again. Being ignored did not faze her either. She did not even raise an eyebrow. Then, as she was drawing close to the group, she suddenly stopped. She nibbled at the popsicle while remaining thoroughly composed. As she chewed, the distinct sound of crunching escaped her mouth. Once she finished eating, the girl looked at the stick left behind by the tree, picked her tongue, and tossed it away at her feet. Her eyes sharp as ever, her gaze slowly moved over the faces of each individual in the group. The man with the rucksack shouted at her, the girl now clearly beyond the limit of what he could ignore. Naturally, the girl, Aoi Senna, was well aware that the man had been watching her since she had arrived. With a mocking snort, she abruptly crossed her hands over each other and straightened her arms out in front of her. Then the area between her hands warped faintly, and the vague shape of metal rod appeared. It looked similar to a hoe or a shovel, but the shape matched neither of those descriptions. It was a razor-sharp sword with a bifurcated blade. After a moment, it took on a definite shape, and Senna grasped it with both hands. However, it did not end there. Immediately after, a blue light illuminated both sides of the sword Senna was holding, as well as the air directly to the right of her where it was pointed. Just as before, metal pieces appeared from that glowing blue space. As they took shape, they noisily fused with the long blade that had appeared before them. At last, a ring formed, one which another long trail of light streaked far to the right. The bifurcated blade traced the trail's trajectory as it came into being. Though one might have originally thought it to be a hoe or a shovel, it was now clear that it had transformed into a gigantic sword. Sharp yet elegant, translucent yet destructive, sinister yet beautiful. With an overwhelming sense of presence, the sword settled in Senna's hands. The man with the rucksack showed no reaction. He simply stared at Senna with a malicious look on his face. With a voice quite high-pitched for a man, he had ordered Senna to leave, accompanying with it a accompanying it with a violent gesture. His tone was thoroughly domineering, though he kept his distance from her. Senna, on the other hand, opened her mouth without showing any shift in emotion. It seemed to be more of a request for confirmation rather than an actual question. She rotated her gaze toward the man with the rucksack, locking him in place. In response, the man showed clear signs of fluster, providing a fierce contrast to what he had displayed before them. The man, too paralyzed by fear, was unable to act nor answer her question. The group of people muttering, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" paid no attention to the exchange between the two of them. Rather, their eyes did not even register it. Senna's gaze met with the man's. The first to avert their eyes was him. Remaining silent, Senna brandished the great sword she was holding in both hands in a Kasumi no Kamae stance. She then slowly lowered her hips, and then she cast her upper body forward. Translated as mist stance. It is a type of stance utilized in sword fights. The sword is held horizontally with a hilt beside the face, and the tip of the blade pointed toward the opponent. It is a stance often employed in many ancient styles of swordsmanship. The sword was held at eye level for the purpose of severing the eyes of the opponent with a single horizontal strike. It is said that the name comes from the opponent's vision going blurry, hence the word Kasumi. Oh. The sword emitted light once more, but unlike before, and what it released was not blue light, but a light blending together, a fierce purple and red. Suddenly, a high-pitched screech resembling a woman's scream resounded. The atmosphere between her and the man was warped with anger. But not in the metaphorical manner. It was entirely physical. The very air itself vibrated, converging toward the sword Senna was holding. Then the red glow of the sword became inconceivably intense, to the point of dazzlement. Senna took a small breath and gritted her teeth. A booming sound roared. A shower of sparks surged. A sonic wave erupted, one that sought to blow away the air itself. The vibration in the air then immediately subsided. The sword, however, continued to flicker with a brilliant red glow, one reminiscent of coursing blood. Senna slowly pointed the tip of her sword directly at the man. As one would expect, the previously indifferent group started showing signs of agitation. Bewildered, they all started running away as if they had returned to their senses. Senna paid them no mind. She simply kept her eyes locked on the single man with the rucksack. The man, who until now had shown no clear signs of fear, began to panic. He started taking a few steps back, but his face turning pale. He shook his head in denial.
誤解するなと言ったはず。
Senna did not even remotely entertain the man's supplications.
質問したのはただの挨拶代わりだ。お前が何を答えたって、それを壊すことに変わりはない。
A fierce glitter dwelled within her eyes. The man shrieked pitifully, turned on his heel, and attempted to flee. However, the group, which had only just dispersed, was now running away in confusion. His escape route blocked the man, who had grown far beyond frantic, stopped dead in his tracks. And at that very moment, Senna kicked off the ground and closed the gap between her and the man's back. It was A blow so swift. It was hard to conceptualize that it had come from Senna's slender arms. The blade swooped horizontally, shredding the rucksack the man was carrying. The impact blew the man away. He collapsed to the ground and curled into a ball, covering his head with his hands. Having lost the will to flee, all the man could do was tremble. His groin was now sodden, the man having become incontinent out of fear. He pissed himself. It's like a Kojima game. Oh my god. No, wait, what? Senna walked over to the man and, without paying him any mind, gazed down at the contents of the destroyed rucksack. A collection of small sparks spurted out from within, emitting a crackling sound. There was a device inside. Its shape might have originally called to mind a device one size larger than a modem, but after getting demolished by Senna's sea sword, it was now in pieces. It could not be of any use anymore. The deafening mechanical sound that had been coming from within the rucksack could no longer be heard.
Nozomi.
Ah, it's Nozomi again. Muttering to no one in particular, Senna's voice oozed with hatred. Well, as fall moved forward, it had gradually been getting colder outside. The fact that I had been able to go out in a short-sleeved shirt only a few days ago felt unreal. The color of the sky was also somewhat dull. It was previously bright and seemed to be fading. If you went to a park, you'd be able to see the vibrant autumn leaves spreading from the trees. Maybe they were sucking the color from the sky. As I looked up toward that sky, I jabbed my toothbrush into my mouth. The nice thing about my base was that I had no eyes on me. I could do anything I wanted on the roof without fear of other people's scrutiny. It was also fairly spacious, giving it a nice open feel. My sink was located outside my container, which allowed me to brush my teeth outside when the weather was nice. It was pretty inconvenient when it rained, though. As I rubbed my sleepy eyes, I moved my toothbrush around my mouth and thought back to what had happened a day prior. After everything, Remy had stayed in my room until late at night. She even held my hand until I finally calmed down, which had taken at least an hour. Although I should clarify that nothing had actually happened between us before she'd gone home. Two people of that opposite sex, and the same age no less, had been left all alone in a cramped room for hours on end, yet they never approached any particularly lewd topics. If I had the skills to carry out conversations like that, I would have gained normie status a long time ago. See, I just recognize those as, not particularly normal conversations. You don't just talk about that stuff. Jesus Christ, why was I like this? The part of me that wanted this bullshit sexual gratification made me want to puke. I was genuinely trying to help me. It was as a friend, nothing more. She had already done a lot for me just by saying I'll stay by her side. That alone had made me feel leagues better. Having just that pillar of support made a tremendous difference. Despite the gut-wrenching murder of Takashina in the numbskull case, I'd found myself feeling pretty stable after the night had passed. Maybe it was because my mind was preoccupied by the patent and the trial records I'd looked up yesterday. The power to project delusions onto reality. Did such a thing really exist? Was I being targeted by a shogun because I had the power to do so? If I did have that power, a childhood memory resurfaced. The bus! It was the day I hadn't been able to go on the field trip. The day when I'd been the only one not involved in a certain accident. The bus had crashed and several of my classmates were injured. And Mr. Saito, my teacher, died. I remembered images of those things appearing vividly in my mind back then. I'd seen them, clear as day. Had it really been just foreknowledge? What if those images hadn't just been foreknowledge? What if they'd been a delusion of mine? What if I had projected that delusion onto reality? My body's starting to start trembling, so I wrapped my arms around myself in an attempt to counter it. A murderer, yeah. Ah, Rimi! Rimi was standing there. And despite how early in the morning it was, she was just as cheerful and energetic as ever. The moment I saw her smile, the trembling I'd been unable to fight suddenly ceased. That was odd. I used to get extremely uncomfortable whenever 3D girls were around me, but for some reason, I felt at ease now that Rimi was here. Oh, I understand now. According to the minimum attendance chart, I had to go to school today. I probably told Rimi that yesterday. Yeah, it had to be that. Because of Shogun, I'd been too afraid to go out on my own. Always Rimi told me I'll stay by her side. She was keeping that promise. Rimi winked mischievously at me. What arrogance was this? Ha! I couldn't believe a girl from my class had come to pick me up. It was a scenario I would have never expected to ever happen in real life. But she wanted to make it genuinely top tier. She should have barged into my room and woken me up. That would have insta-killed me. I like cooked up idiotic delusions like that. Maybe looked up at the sky. Had a distant look of hers again. Winter! Aww. Well, the sun's light is composed of 7 colors. The well-known colors of the rainbow. For those 7 colors to reach the human eye, they first have to pass through the Earth's atmosphere. When that happens, a phenomenon called scattering occurs. Put it simply, when light collides with the particles in the atmosphere, it gets refracted in several random directions. And since it gets refracted in random directions, it results in light traveling around a lot, and that's what makes it easily observable for people. The colors that scatter the most are purple and blue. That's why the sky is blue. I was so smart, I impressed even myself sometimes. Anyway, I had to think about that. I just need that exact moment. Anyway, While my answer was based on scientific fact, Remy's came from emotions and romanticism.
寒くてみんなが下を向いちゃうから青を望む人の数が減っちゃうの。
I felt like Remy had already said something like that before. When exactly?
だから寒くても上を向いて歩こう。
I quickly changed clothes and left the Kurenai conference hall building with Remy. Going to school together, for all intents and purposes, this was some normally shit. Shogun and Yua terrified me so much I honestly wanted them to die, and I really meant that. And yet, thanks to them, I had been able to test out normie-dom. Maybe I owed them more than I realized. I attempted to force myself to change how I felt about them, but Dr. Takashina's face resurfaced in my mind, and my good mood was instantly blown away. My doctor had been killed, and it could very well have been because of me. Shogun had killed a doctor I knew well, all to set an example, or to provoke me. I was hit with a wave of pure anxiety and dread. I began to gradually fall behind Remy. Looking at her diagonally now, I glanced at the back of her head. What kind of expression could she be making? She was humming. She was humming the song from the Phantasm CD I lent her the day prior. Her footsteps were light and bouncy. We weren't even talking, so why was she so happy? Seeing her like that, it helped alleviate my anxiety, if only a little bit. It was probably time to be honest with myself. Why was Remy being so nice to me? Maybe the reason lay within the memories I had with her. Memories that were lost to me. When we arrived at school, I let Remy go off on her own, made a break for the restroom. That was one of my secretly OP tactics. I felt bad, since Remy had gone out of her way to pick me up, but coming to school with a girl would make me stand out. Especially if the Dokuns in my class noticed. Who knew what terrible fate would be in store for me then? That was why I had taken a short break in the restroom. It would buy me enough time to make them think I'd come alone. And yet, my mission had ended in failure. Ha! Putting a nonchalant look on my face, I left the restroom and headed toward the classroom at the end of the hallway, keeping my head down all the way. As I made my way there, I spotted Ayase walking toward me. The moment our eyes met, Ayase's lips twisted into a thin smile. Ayase was a celebrity. I knew I'd be better off not talking to her when we were at school, but this would only make me stand out. Fortunately, Ayase wasn't on the same page as I was, which she showed by choosing to stop directly in front of me. I had no choice but to follow suit. I nearly screamed, but I managed to cover my mouth with my hand. Why would he bring that up in public? I agree. I looked around in a panic. The situation was already really bad. Surprisingly, Ayase was also the center of attention. It was rare for her to come to school at all. And she was Phantasm's vocalist. And she was a beautiful, androgynous woman. That last thing was pretty much a universal opinion, meaning both guys and girls alike were immensely interested in Ayase. And they all knew there was no way she'd be talking to an otaku freak like me under normal circumstances. The gazes surrounding me were painful, and I wanted to run away. She always said the same thing every time we met. Ayase may have been on my side, but I was tired of her repeating the same bullshit over and over again like a broken record. I want to get it just as much as you want me to. I just don't know how. And there it was. Was she ever going to stop dodging the goddamn question? Hmm.
ちょっとだけ見方を変えたら分かった。もしかしたら匠にももう見えているのかも。見ていないだけで。
And she lost me. Taku. Please. Just put your mind to it, boy. Conversing with ISA always wore me out. Spare me the Zen koans, please.
ケンはちゃんと探してるよ。僕だって絶対手に入れたいから。
Unable to bear the piercing gazes for even a second longer, I gave ISA a short sigh of exasperation, then passed her into the classroom. After all that, I became even more depressed. Some of the guys, Misumi-kun included, were staring at me in astonishment. Shit, they see me talking to ISA. I was in deep shit now. Who knew what they were gonna say to me? I could deal with it if they just made fun of me a bit, but I was worried that they'd go one step further and pick an actual fight with me, just because I dared to talk to the ISA. I really didn't need a demo of high school gang activity. I dropped my gaze and made my way to my seat, trying to bring the least possible amount of attention to me. I beg you, leave me alone. Miss me! Miss me! My prayers were left unanswered.
タク、てめえいつの間に？今岸本と話してたよな。
I had to remain silent. I couldn't allow myself to look up.
岸本が誰かとまともに会話してるとこ初めて見たぜ。一体どうやって使ったんだよ。
I beg you, don't yell so loud. It's echoing throughout the entire classroom. Please just leave me alone. I have no intention of messing around with ISA. Even if I wanted to, I'm not worthy of her anyway. So please, stop making such a big deal out of this.
なあタク、教えろって。
大地
Alright, then Rimi interrupted him.
落ち着け。タクが困ってるでしょ。
悪い。
Ha! Misumi-kun lowered his voice and tapped me lightly on the back. With my head still hanging low, I laughed. Okay. I know YouTube has reconnected, for sure. But Twitch, I'll have to stop and restart since that took a long fucking while. Start the... And I'm not actually sure about where I was with when my internet decided to cut out because it decided to fucking update in the middle of me using it. Okay, now I know. With my head still hanging low, I let out a small sigh. Rimi had come to save me yet again. Seriously, though. Come on! Controller! Controller! Come on! Come on, controller! Controller! Come on! There we go.
で、実際のところどうやったんだ？
I didn't know what I expected. This was the dude who only thought was the wrong head after all.
もう大ちんってほんと節操ないよね。そのうち彼女さんに刺されるんじゃない？
心配すんなって。俺こう見えても各種キャラは欠かさねえから。
何それ。
なたく教えろよ。岸本とはどんな感じなんだ。
Asking me once again, Mitsumu-kun started rubbing my shoulders. While I was reluctant about it, I timidly looked up. About half the guys in the classroom were taking quick glances at me and whispering to each other. Shit, they were still watching me. Don't look at me. Tears ran over the nape of my neck. You were caught in Tokyun's line of sight. You were finished. He'd never let you hear the end of it. All that awaited you was pure, unending hell. What should I do? Run away? Should I just skip classes and go home? I couldn't do that alone. The mere thought of running into either Shogun or Yuo left my legs paralyzed. Should I ask Rimi to go back home with me? She said before that she kept her promises, which meant she'd stay by my side at all times, so if she really had been telling the truth before, surely she'd skip class with me. Regardless, I needed to get out of the classroom as soon as possible. Suddenly, a really loud sound came from the entrance. Everyone immediately turned their gazes toward it, trying to figure out what was going on. Well, it was the transfer student. Rubbing her forehead with tears in her eyes, she bowed silently to everyone around her again and again. The entire classroom had fallen silent. What the hell?
今の見たか。
見た。一人で勝手に扉に激突してたね。
Huh.
やっぱ梢ちゃんは可愛いな。
If the clumsy girl archetype actually existed IRL, she certainly fit the bill.
また泣いた。大丈夫かな。すごい音してたけど。
With worry in her voice, Rimi ran up to the transfer student before anyone else could. She just couldn't help herself from getting involved. What a meddler. Well, I guess she was just that kind.
リミに先越された。待て待て。梢ちゃんを解放するのは俺だ。
Making his intentions clear, telling Rimi to back off, Mitsumi-kun ran over to the transfer student, albeit a bit late. The transfer student running into the door ended up being a blessing in disguise. The guys that had been staring at me up until then had now shifted their attention toward her. Good job, transfer student. I'd have to thank her later. But right then, I happened to overhear what a group of girls near my desk were saying.
うざ。何あれ。
Jealous. Jealous assholes. Just bitches.
狙ってやってんじゃん。
The whispers were faint, but I knew exactly what they said. Oh, Nozomi.
視界にはデッドスポットと呼ばれる通常は使用されることのないいくつかの神経チャンネルが存在することをご存知ですか？
それが第二世代と何か関係があるのかね？
そういうことになります。簡単な実験をしてみましょう。これをご覧ください。
子供騙しを聞いている暇はないぞ。
重要なことですよ。この図には左側にドット、右側にリングがあります。では、左目を手で覆って見えないようにしてください。そのまま右目だけで図の左側にあるドットを見つめてください。
Okay.
いかがですか？ドットを見つめる目の端の方にリングも存在しますか？
Oh, obviously no.
いくらドットだけを見つめていても、隣にあるリングがついでに見えているのは当然だと思うがな。
If you were staring at it up far enough away, then yes. But
では先生、ドットだけを見つめたまま モニターに顔を近づけていってみてください。
This is hey, I literally just said it. I literally just said this. If you're far away, obviously you would be able to see the ring still. But moving closer, yeah. As I said, I know how these things work.
ほう、これは
It disappeared.
興味深いね。
右側のリングが消えた。そうですね。
Yeah.
これは視界が狭まったからではありません。その証拠に、さらにモニターに近づくことで、リングはまた視界に現れます。
Aww.
これは一体どんなトリックだ？
いいえ、
After
トリック
Delusion.
の類ではありません。普段は使用されていないですが、人間が元から持っている目の機能の一つですよ。これはデッドスポットと呼ばれ、
The fuck you mean? It's just an optical illusion. Bro.
ノアによって人間の
There. Connect, you fucking asshole. Okay. Alright. Ugh. I hate that my internet decided to update in the middle of streaming. And it took so fucking long, too. I'm definitely gonna be, asking, someone to change the time of that to be, between 3 and 5. That is not as likely for me. That's not as likely a time for me to stream compared to between 12 and 2. Anyway. It only took like 10 minutes. And then 20 minutes. Okay, so it was about 20 minutes. Most likely. That's still fucking annoying. Especially when I want to stream at night. Like I usually want to do. With this, specifically. Anyway.
ノアによって人間の視界の中に無から有を作り出す際に使用するチャネルなのです。
And then it transitions to the school again, to Takumi. After class is finished, I found myself standing still at the school entrance. Twilight was beginning to encroach upon the sky, and a few crows were flying across it, flapping their wings without so much as a caw. I was waiting for Rimi. It was her turn to clean the classroom. So she was staying longer than usual. We had promised to go home together today, but I was sure she would. Sure we would. So, waiting for that to happen, I had been standing there for over 15 minutes. I had no idea how the day would go this morning, but I managed to make it through it with fairly little trouble. Misumi-kun was so desperate to talk with the transfer student that he dropped the subject about me and ISA entirely. I did it all as a transfer student, really. And then... Delusion time. Speak of the devil, there she was, passing right next to me. With a face that looked like she was about to cry, she bowed her head to me. Despite how uncomfortable I felt, I managed to nod back. I watched as she attempted to leave through the school gate, tripping over herself along the way. Once again, I thought about how small she was. She fit the lolly archetype to a T. And on top of that, she was a clumsy girl, too. I didn't know her very well, but her perfect blend of personalities made me want to shout from the rooftops. All caught up. She was loaded with my traits. And yet, she didn't seem very popular with other girls. What people valued in others really did differ between 2D and 3D, huh? Remy hurried over to me in a half sprint.
わざわざ待っててくれたんだ。ありがとう。そんなに私と一緒に帰りたかった？
She peered into my face with a broad grin. I quickly turned away thanks to the setting sun. She shouldn't have noticed my face turning red. Rather than wanting to head home together, it was more like I was too scared to do it alone. I even felt paranoid just waiting out alone at the gate. Elvia was hiding in the shadows. You should have known that, and yet she was deliberately probing me in a teasing manner.
はあ、嘘でもいいからそうだって言ってほしかったな。ねえ、私さ。
Amy had an unexpectedly distant look in her eyes. They shone faintly with the afterglow of the sunset.
タクの力になれて結構嬉しいよ。
ありがとう。
I thanked her out of reflex. I truly was thankful, though. Amy had become completely irreplaceable to me. Until I found a D-sword, she was all I had to rely on.
どういたしまして。
With a joyous smile, Amy guided me away.
さあ、帰ろう。
Ugh. Suime Academy was in the high-end residential area of Shoto. Every house was huge, and the whole area was just oozed with an air of success and affluence. Despite this being Shibuya and still daytime at that, there were hardly any people around. It gave the area this forlorn, lonesome air.
タクって意外とモテるよね。
Huh? I nearly died just then. What the hell was she talking about?
あれ？自覚ない？
Aw. With a chuckle, Remy shot her index finger toward the tip of my nose. Don't point at people, it's rude, goddammit.
だってこの前はメガネかけた3年生の綺麗な人と一緒だったし。
あれは。
うん、昨日聞いた。タクに意地悪する人だよね。
You knew that. Well, then why are you?
で、今日はあのフェスと話してた。
ん？
あと折原さん。転校してきた朝に真っ先にタクに声をかけてたよね。さらに今こうして私と一緒に帰ってる。
Ah!
ほら、モテモテだ。
Ah! Actually, I had been thinking about that recently. Has my life as a normie begun? Are my popular times finally here? Stuff like that. Something that would have been absolutely unthinkable for me a month ago. Back then, I had never had the chance to even talk to 3D girls, except Nanami. Excluding Nanami. I always boasted about not being into 3D girls, but that was just to make myself look cool and indifferent. Ha! Surimi was definitely onto something. Why had my encounters with girls increased with such frequency lately? It all kicked off after that chat with Shogun. A scary thought suddenly crossed my mind. What if every single event in this past month had all been a delusion? What if I had just been having a really, really long dream? Considering how insane everything was, I didn't think I'd be all that surprised if everything went right back to normal tomorrow. Or maybe the person controlling me had swapped out with someone else. Maybe the previous one was happy just watching me go through the motions, but the new one would prefer to interact with other characters with something like that. Either way, the past month didn't feel entirely real to me. Way too many things had been happening.
っていうか、私今日初めて知ったんだけど、フェスって同じ学校だったんだね。しかも同学年の隣のクラス。
Remy's voice was overflowing with excitement. I guess Remy was quite the trend chaser.
昨日タクから CD 借りたばっかりだからすごくびっくりしちゃった。それにすごく可愛い子だし。
Amy circled around in front of me. While still facing me, she began to walk backward. Her voice got all quiet, and then she asked me a question timidly.
話してたの。今朝フェス岸本さんと聞かせてほしいな。私には聞く権利なんてないかもって思うけど、でも岸本さんと話してた時のタク、すごく思い詰めた様子だったから、なんだか心配で。
She'd seen completely through me. I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea to tell her everything. It wasn't like I had other people to talk to about it. Plus, agonizing over it on my own had gotten pretty exhausting. I'd appreciate another perspective. Not from someone who's spoken nothing but vague and ambiguous bullshit like ISA and Senna, but from someone that would give actual concrete answers to my concerns. But when we talked yesterday, she hadn't believed me at all.
話してたのはケンのこと。
ケンって昨日タクが言ってたやつ？
I nodded.
綾瀬は持ってるんだ。
何を？
本物を。
Takumi, you need to man up and say, it's a delusion. It's a real delusion. As in, well, he much better than I can explain it, but definitely much better than he can explain it, to be honest, actually. I wasn't completely sure, but I thought I heard Rimi taking a large breath. She saw her with her eyes open wide, and then, after taking a few steps back,
嘘だ。
she shouted with a clearly skeptical voice.
だってあれおもちゃでしょ？
だから僕のはおもちゃだけど、彼女のは本物で、ライブ行けば見られ。
Oh no, you won't. I quickly realized what I was saying and cut myself off. Would she even be able to see it? I mean, ISA had mentioned that only people with powers could see D swords.
ライブに行けばその本物の剣を見られるの？じゃあ今度行ってみようかな。ファンタズムのライブそのものも見たいし。あ、タク一緒に行く？
見られないかも。限られた人にしか見えないらしいんだ。
そうなんだ。裸の王様みたいなものかな。
は？
じゃあ私バカだから見えないかもなんてね。
Actually, that was a good point. Come to think of it, I didn't know anything about what exactly a real D sword was, nor how it worked. I'd just been accepting everything ISA said without question.
そんな剣本当にあるのかな。やっぱり私信じられないよ。タクが見たっていう岸本さんの剣も本物っぽく見えるおもちゃじゃないの？
でも光ったし。
おもちゃでも光るやつはいくらでもあるよ。
True. She's not wrong. Well, she wasn't wrong. Exactly. She's not wrong. You know? If you wanted something to glow, you could easily slap some lights onto it. But when I thought of the overwhelming sense of presence Senna and ISA's swords had, her existence became harder to deny. He had an aura about them that no mere toy should have been capable of. And most of all, ISA had taken that sword out of thin air. I'd seen it with my own eyes. It wasn't anything simple like hypnosis or super speed. On top of that, it felt as if I'd only gotten to experience the tip of the iceberg.
僕には妄想を現実に投影する力があるかも。
I had no definitive proof, but I tried throwing my thoughts at Rimi regardless.
だから将軍に、狙われてる気がする。
That was the only possible reason he'd be targeting me. There was nobody more harmless than I was. Otakus were fundamentally harmless beings. We did shut ourselves away in our little worlds. Or in our own little worlds, after all. I don't know, man. If we had time to bother denizens of the third dimension, we'd rather spend that in our heads. Flirting with adorable Moe characters. Nah, man, I would rather think about time travel and all that. Such as in this series.
昨日調べてた特許のこと？タクはあんな装置持ってるの？
I shook my head.
そうじゃなくて、装置とかなくても力使えるかも。
タクからかってるんでしょ？あ、わかった。何かの漫画かアニメが元ネタ？
Just as I'd feared, she didn't believe me. But I know I'd experienced what I was talking about before, with that accident back in elementary school. I tried desperately to explain that to Rimi, that I might have been a murderer. I knew Rimi might abandon me if I confessed that to her, but I couldn't hide it anymore. I wanted to tell someone. If I did, I could clear the uncertainty in my mind, even if just a little bit. Hello. Rimi listened to my shaky explanation with a troubled look on her face, remaining silent the entire time. After I finished talking,
考えすぎだよ。
she nonchalantly laughed the whole thing off.
そう考えてることだってタクの妄想なんだよ。わかってる？
Well, that's the point! It's all delusions! That's the point! Was I really overthinking it? That was a nice thought. But even with that theory, the uncertainty in the depths of my mind hadn't cleared at all. The smell of dust wafted through an office. Oh, are we back in, back with the detectives? An office situated on the second floor of a somewhat old building. Sunlight streamed in through the window covering the back wall, turning the fluttering dust into that of a thin, powdery snow. The words plastered onto the wall, Frisia Credit Bureau, cast a shadow onto a nearby desk. 20 desks were lined up across the floor, with not even a hint of a gap between them. Each one was drowning in an endless sea of documents, papers, and files. Piles stacked so high they looked to be on the verge of collapsing. From an outsider's perspective, it looked far more like a publishing company than a credit bureau. Most of the desks lacked denizens. There were only around 5 to 6 people at best. As for why that was, the obvious conclusion would be that it was a Saturday, but that was by no means the answer. This was made evident by the whiteboard stuck to the wall near the entrance, its schedule densely packed with tasks and projects. Nearing the end of his lunch break, Ban Yasuji opened the door to the private investigation company. Yep, there we go. He entered without so much as a knock, and yet none of the workers seemed to bat an eye. Continuing to act as if he belonged there, Ban gave a quick, "How's it going?" and headed toward the desk at the back of the room. In it sat a robust-looking woman hunched over her laptop.
Oh, Momo-chan, genki?
In response, the woman continued staring at her monitor with a weary expression. Her name was Momose Katsuko, and she was the president of Frisia.
Ban-chan, mata kita no?
I recognize that voice!
入所についての新ネタない。
たく、私は忙しいのよ。抱えてる案件が5万ってあるの。
Hold on, actually. What the fuck was that? I don't know. I don't care. Anyway. Momose Chaos Heru VA. Would be Kujira. Let's see, I'm pretty sure I've heard it relatively recently. Holy shit. Hitokami. And Mushoku Tensei. Oh my god. Anyway, that would explain the most recent thing that I've. That would explain the main thing that I've heard her did the voice from. Heard her from. Also, Kingdom Hearts. No, that would be the Japanese voice. So, nope. So yeah, pretty much just most recent one would be that. Okay. Anyway. Oh shit. Clicked on the wrong thing.
うちみたいな零細企業は土日返上で仕事しなくちゃいけないの。わかる？
Aww. Momose finally raised her head. He placed a hand on her forehead and, upon seeing Bond's grinning face, lightly shook her head.
ここは警察の秘密組織でも子会社でもないって何度も言ってるでしょうに。ただで情報もらえるなんて虫のいいこと考えてるんだろうけど、ここに来てる暇があるなら自分の足で何とかなさいな公務員さん。または依頼料を払うこと。予約表はみゆちゃんにもらってちょうだい。
相変わらず冷たい社長だなおい。
Ha! In spite of Moase's sharp remarks, Bond didn't show a hint of concern. He simply fanned himself with his distinctive handheld fan, remaining aloof as could be.
この会社立ち上げるときにはあんなに協力してやったのによ。
Aww.
あら、バンちゃんも恩着せがましい人だわね。
あ
なんで同じこと言い続ければ気が済むわけ？
まあ言っててくれ。じゃあ依頼料はこいつでどうかな。
Bond surely pulled out a plastic baggie with the name of a nearby Japanese-style confectionery store on it.
なんだ、あるなら最初から出してよ。いつも悪いわね。みおちゃん、お茶2つ持ってきて。
Her attitude of having undergone a swift, stark change, Momose closely examined the contents of the bag Bond had handed to her.
栗羊羹、今が旬なのよね。わかってるじゃない。バンちゃん、そんなところに突っ立ってないで座って。
Won her over real quick. She knows her too well. Bond gave a wry smile, took a chair from the closest desk, and seated himself beside Momose. The clerical lady Momose had called for before brought over 2 steaming cups of tea.
なんか新ネタあるかい？
ちょっと待ちなさいって。
Momose carefully unwrapped the chestnut yokan, folded up the wrapper, and set it beside her PC. He then hurriedly devoured the first of the sweet treats. Japanese-style treats were her greatest weakness. They were a necessary offering for Bond to bring every time he came for information.
おいしいわ、これ。
人に言えた義理じゃないけどよ。ちったい
I was thinking. Fuck, Bond. I was like, this might be why she's so round.
でないといつまで経っても結婚できないぜ。
本当に人に言えた義理じゃないわね。私はもうとっくに今期は逃したわよ。
Fair. With a shrug of her shoulders, Moase took a sip from her tea, then turned to face Bond. Of course, there are still people who would definitely be fine with her, despite her age. But
また新しいニュージェネ事件起きたわね。こんなところでサボってていいの？
そっちの調査は俺以外の全員が真剣に取り組んでるさ。俺は別のアプローチから真実に迫ってやるってね。
かっこつけちゃって似合わないわよ。
Knowing himself to be quite sensitive to hot drinks, Bond showed no hint of reaching for his cup. He simply continued to fan his face, in spite of the already chilly air. It was something of a habit of his.
警察は G レートの線追ってるの？
I like this angle. Yeah!
そうそう、G レート。ありゃすごいな。ももちゃんの話の通りだったぜ。
ああ。
私が嘘の情報を渡すわけないでしょうに。これでおまんま食べてるんだから。それで？
まあ、勝手に調べてるよ。
勝手にって。ちょっとバンちゃん。
Ah! Moase's voice carried well. Her personality was intrinsically energetic, lending her voice quite a bit of volume. The workers in Frisia were used to this, not even batting an eye, as her angry voice reverberated through the office. The boss's yelling was an everyday occurrence, after all. Bond and Moase were old friends, so he was all too familiar with being on the receiving end of it. Thus, much to his chagrin, Moase's wrath was met only with him lazily picking at his ear. And before she said anything else, Moase quickly lowered her voice, for this was a topic she did not want met with prying ears. But her face was red with anger, as if she had not been cheerfully stuffing herself with sweets just moments before. She pointed her finger at Bond with tremendous intensity. Aww.
政治に宗教に企業、どれだけ根深く関与してると思ってるの？この間テレビで G レートの講義をやった太田教授がどうなったか、あんたもよく知ってるでしょ。
貼り付けで殺された被害者だろ。何度も聞いたよ。
Oh shit.
何度でも言ってやるわ。言ってやりますとも。あんたはいつも私の忠告を無視するんだから。それでいつも尻拭いさせられるのは私なんてたまったもんじゃないわ。
まあまあ、そうかなるなって。茶でも飲んで落ち着いたら。
Ignoring both Bond and her tea, Moase tossed a second chestnut yukon into her mouth in a huff.
大丈夫だって。一応諏訪と一緒に動いてるんで。今はまだ G レートやら何やらってのは突飛すぎて上を説得できねえなよ。
諏訪ちゃんは確かに有能だし、しっかりしているけど、無理させたら承知しないわよ。
ももちゃんはいつから諏訪の保護者になったんだ？
あんちゃんの無謀な行動に未来ある若者が巻き込まれるのはかわいそうでしょうに。
そうか。
With a shrug of resignation, Bond took a testing sip of his tea, only to immediately grimace. It was still too hot.
しかし、バイオリズムが人を殺す凶器になるなんてこと、本当にあり得るのかね？
前に説明したでしょうに。
実はいまいち理解しきれてねえんだわ。それってももちゃんお得意の電磁波と関係してるのか？
Moase let out a sigh, then, in contrast to Bond, composedly sipped at her tea.
満月の夜の事件簿はよく知ってるでしょ？
まあな。
A vast influx of incidents and accidents would always occur on the night of a full moon. This was no urban legend either. One need only glance at the Tokyo Metropolitan Police's statistical records.
その満月以上の力でバイオリズムカーブが上昇したらどうなると思う？
Aww.
興奮するってことだろ。
それだけ？渋谷は特殊な街なのよ。言ったでしょ。 GE レートが高ければバイオリズムカーブは上昇する。しかもその上昇値は満月の夜に影響する数値のおよそ6800倍。
なんとも想像しにくい数字だな。
比べ物にならないくらいすごいって考えとけばいいわ。
しかしなんで今なんだい？
殺された太田教授が言っていたのは GE レートが半年前から急に増加しているせいってことね。地層の構造に大きな変化が起きない限りそんなことはありえないそうだけど。そう駅前のスクランブル交差点で火山が噴火するほどのエネルギーが必要なの。
火山？そんなに大きな力なのか？
それくらい今の GE レートはありえない状況なのよ。
それを世間に訴えようとした教授はニュージェネで殺された。
事件の前日に教授が出演する予定だったテレビ番組が急遽放送中止になった話知ってる？
確かか。
知り合いに MHK に勤めている人がいて聞かされたの。
国営放送の番組に圧力かけられる立場なんてそうそうないぜ。
私も詳細についてはわからないわ。知ってたらとっくに告発してるだろうし。
Bond leaned forward, intrigued.
俺でも大体予想はつくさ。この際はっきり言っちゃってよ。
本気で聞きたい？社会の暗部に踏み込むことになるわよ。いいの？じゃあクビになるかもしれない。
俺はニュージェネ事件の犯人さえ捕まえられりゃそれでいいんだけどね。どうするかは答えを聞いてから考えろ。
Sipping her tea, Moensei tapped away at her laptop keyboard with her free hand. Displayed on the screen was a single document. It contained a list of information Moensei had personally looked into.
名和党。
What? One of the two major political parties in Japan. 4 years ago, the Meiwa Party was an opposition party, but that changed following a major breakthrough in the general election that year. Its catchphrase is a brighter peace for the people, as the two kanji used in the same Mei and Wa mean bright and peace, respectively. A condition in which... Okay, brain death. And a condition in which all cognitive functions have ceased, but heart function is still maintained via artificial respiration. There are two types of brain death. Total brain death, where the cerebellum, cerebellum, and brainstem all cease to function, and brainstem death, where only the brainstem ceases to function. The vegetative state is often misunderstood as a form of unconsciousness, in which there is a loss of some or all cerebral functions. But in actuality, the brainstem and the cerebellum are still functional. Spontaneous breathing is possible as well. Even so, there's an extremely rare chance of recovery from a vegetative state. In Japan, there are laws and regulations in place to determine whether or not a person can be determined legally brain dead. The following 5 items are those regulations, each of which are checked twice with sufficient time between each check. 1. The patient is in a deep coma. 2. The pupils are dilated and fixed. 3. There are no reflexes from the brainstem. The patient's brainwaves are flat. Spontaneous breathing has ceased.
ももちゃん、勘弁してくれ。俺はてっきり野党の名前が出てくると思ってたんだがな。よりによって。
Bond groaned in utter exasperation. Yet despite his smile, his eyes showed not even a hint of one. All they housed now was the cold, discerning gaze of a detective.
下手したらこの国が揺らぐぜ。
Since it was the weekend, I'd been unable to get Remy to come over, so I was forced to spend 2 very anxious days all by myself. I had Remy pick up some groceries on Friday, so I could survive the weekend without leaving our base. I'd come very close to sending her a text asking her to come over, multiple times. But in the end, I hadn't sent anything. The only thing that gave me a break from my anxiety was the half hour I'd spent watching the latest episode of Bloodtoon. Even in extreme circumstances such as this one, I still had to make sure to stay up to date on Bloodtoon. Remy was my sole source of comfort in the third dimension, but when it came to the second one, Bloodtoon was the one that fulfilled that role. Well, to be more specific, Seroton was. After I'd finally overcome that weekend, Monday came. I took a peek at Ray Power's Phantasm section, only to find it in a state of complete disarray. Wasting no time, I immediately followed a link taking me to a channel. It was a total shit show. Okay. Fest from Phantasm was hospitalized in the past. Wait. Oh no. Fest of Phantasm's real name is Kishimoto. When she was younger, she was hospitalized for mental illness reasons. The name of the hospital was AHM. Cool story, bro. Too bad it's total BS. Deets, please. Whose eyes are those eyes? Who the fuck is Fest? Are you serious? Well, AHM is only meant for patients with severe mental disorders, FYI. For fuck's sake, more haters? What a poor attempted bait. If you're gonna bother making a thread like this, at least include a source. Fail. You serious? Whenever I see something like that, I will think of Spider-Man 2, I believe. It's such bullshit. Fest has never been in that dumbass hospital. How do you even sleep at night spreading such obvious slander? Never even heard of HM before. Stop making shit up. Strike the stake right into these dumbasses spouting BS. The next new gen victim is gonna be one of you bastards. This claim was legit. Fest was hospitalized for a very long period of time for mental health reasons. The hospital publishes a free newspaper, in which a selection of drawings, essays, poems, and other works done by patients are shown. Her song lyrics can be found there. You can find all this on the hospital's website, dipshits. Her full name is Kishimoto ISA. HM equals Heart Medical. Finally, is that seriously all it takes for you guys to abandon her? Well, that's just fine by me. That just means I've got fewer rivals now. And Fest time will be mine. See y'all at the wedding. Finally! Wait, Lamau? It was actually true. What the fuck? Hell yeah. I declare a flame war. There's even pictures. I'm gonna piss myself laughing. Huh. Notice the Phantasm's determination. Oi! Stop that! Is Phantasm gonna disband because of this? I used to like Fest quite a bit, sexually. But this must be someone's guidance too, Lamau. The verses there aren't used in Phantasm's song, are they? Don't quit Fest, I'm seriously gonna cry! I think I sort of understand it. They say there's a fine line between genius and insanity after all. Bad breakup flag for the win! Tonight the Black Mass cometh! Really? This comes out now? Not during any of the friggin' times. Not during the times that Takumi considered referred to Kozue as a lolly. Really? Yeah. Lolly Festa. Well, why? Anyway. Well, that sets Phantasm's fate in stone. For what it's worth, I guess this is a more fitting end for them than going mainstream. Any comment from Fest yet on their official website? It doesn't matter how much noise you versions make on here. Fest doesn't look at the past, only the future. Can't wait for your next prophecy predicting all your deaths. BRB putting on my roller skates. Roller? Man, okay, what's the problem though? This reeks of some weird advertising seen by a phantasm. Desperate to keep your dead band alive much? It's always obvious that Fest is a total schizo. Why is everyone acting like this is a surprise at all? So Fest always was mentally ill. That's what's good about her. Calm down, everyone. This is all just some magnificent bait from Fest's hand. Fest's spirit collapsed because the world is full of ill will. Its power awoke the punk part of her soul. Those keen, aggressive lyrics are the cry of her sublimated soul. We, on the contrary, should celebrate the facts buried by 12 as holy grace. The website's down now. Are they trying to bail? I followed the URL 12 had sent. Apparently, Arkhart Medical was an old school psychiatric facility that only treated severe cases of mental illness. Or at least, that was what the website said. Arkhart Medical is an organization that seeks to guide children to the right way of life by providing them with good role models and a wonderful natural environment to learn and grow in. The website had pictures of the place, and frankly, it looked like a straight-up penitentiary. There were iron bars on every single window. I wasn't even sure if it was still open or not. The homepage hadn't been updated for 4 years or so, but just as the poster on that channel had said, beneath a certain poem was the name and picture and then photo of a young Ayase. The shadow of the wicked heart lurks within that body, a presence within which the eye cannot perceive. Even if I try to split asunder, perpetual nightmares alas take shape and eventually become a sword, one that will tear this body apart should they bear the shield of apathy. Ye souls shall escape the flames of war on a battlefield reborn. Become foes with malice in their hearts, ill will without compare. When that time comes, Mouse shall possess its own will, and thus reveal its true form. It wasn't that it was shocking to me or anything like that. After all, I'd probably gone to a mental hospital too, back when I was in elementary school, so really I felt sympathy for her. Ayase and I were the same. She had that bewitching aura to her, and every person my age in Shibuya thought she was so charismatic, but despite how different that made us, in this one way, we were the same. The fact that we had that in common reinforced my hypothesis that I had the same power she did, power to project delusions onto reality. It wouldn't be wrong to say that it gave me some courage, maybe even strength. Though, there was one problem. Up until now, I had taken everything Ayase had said at face value. That might have been a mistake. Things about how to acquire a D-sword. Things about how getting my hands on one could save me. It wasn't the phenomenon she showed me that was making me doubt her, but the words she'd said. I wasn't sure whether or not to believe her. Maybe. The sudden ringing of my phone startled me. You could always count on them to take you by surprise. I had nearly pissed myself. That was why I hated these things. The loud ring refused to stop, so I clicked my tongue and grabbed it. It was probably Nanami calling me. It was probably just... Okay, so I'm pretty sure I won't have the issue of my internet cutting out again for an update. Okay. She was probably just calling me to bitch about whatever random bullshit was bothering her. Tell me now. You know what it could be? I pressed the accept call button and held the phone to my ear without checking who was calling. I had no idea why I did that. Right. After everything that I'd been through, why the hell had I not checked the caller's number? Ah! What came from the other side of the line was a certain melody playing loudly. You may pass. I frantically checked the number on the display. Yeah, it's the same number. Shit, I knew I should have checked. It was them, but how? It said it wasn't in use anymore. When I had Nanami call the number to check, that one notice played. Hey, the prankster had reactivated it.
どうしよ
Panicking, I turned toward the center of my room. Surely Rimi would be there, ready to give me some advice. But she obviously wasn't. Of course she wasn't. Rimi was at school right now, in the middle of class. I told her in advance that I wouldn't go to school today, so she had to come to pick me up. So, as I freaked out trying to figure out what the hell to do, Yume Pass kept on playing from my phone. A whole minute had already passed. The small amount I'd listened to earlier, I could tell there were other sounds mixed in with the song. A few things I could make out were the sounds of the car engines, the people walking. Whoever was calling me, they had to be outdoors. But who the hell was calling me? I could only think of one person that would pull a prank like that. Shogun. Now really freaking out, I looked at Serotan, who was sending this to my PC screen.
どうしたらいいと思うセラ
Serotan smiled at me, just as she always said.
切っちゃえばいいさ。無視無視。
I agree!
そっかそうだよね
I agree. Just hang up! I should have done that from the beginning. I put my thumb on the button to end the call. But, for some reason, before hanging up, I felt the undeniable urge to listen to Yume Pass. Just one more time, just for a little bit longer. Felt strange, even to me. It creeped me out, as there was no reason I should have hesitated even remotely, and yet I almost subconsciously gripped my phone and brought it to my ear. Oh no. It came surging out of the phone. A fierce pain. A violent, piercing, nearly ultrasonic noise. That sound shot throughout my entire body. It was as if lightning had struck my head. My entire body was paralyzed. I screamed as loud as I could, yet I couldn't hear my own voice. Boiling. My brain. My heart. They boiled, they bubbled, they melted into mush. Pain crawled from deep within my body, tearing me apart. My consciousness liquefied and coursed through my veins. When it finally arrived at my heart, it erupted into a resounding explosion, then vanished. Overwhelmed by these horrific sensations, I was unable to figure out what was going on. I could no longer even think. Still not chapter 6, what the fuck? When Kusunoki Yua slowly opened her eyes, she saw her class 3B, enveloped in pure chaos. Several students had collapsed, their eyes had rolled back into their heads. Foam bubbled from their mouths as their entire bodies convulsed. What the fuck? Another group of students were crushed to the floor, cowering, pressing down on their heads in pain. The students had remained shot up from their seats and made straight for the hallway, even though classes were technically still in session. The teacher was too focused on taking care of the students that had collapsed to pay those who left any attention. All the students that had run away were screaming in terror, but none of that seemed to register within Yua's mind. Her phone had been vibrating in her shirt pocket for a while now, when she finally realized that Yua slowly reached for it. She attempted to stand up, but was unable to keep steady and fell from her chair. Staying low to the ground, she leaned against the wall. After she put her glasses back in place, Yua pressed the accept call button and held her phone to her ear.
Hi. 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 一応大丈夫です。
As she answered the question, Yua grimaced and pressed on her forehead. She could hear the clamor of her classmates in the hallway, as well as the voice of her teacher trying to help the unconscious students. It all sounded so terribly distant.
はい。あな は、はい。はい。そうですか。それで、
Suddenly Yua went pale. With a gulp, she covered her phone with her hand and brought her voice low. Her voice had very clearly been shaking.
そんなわけないんです。だって、本当は。
Upon saying that much, Yua's voice began to falter. She hung her head.
本当は、私、だったのに。
The commotion in the hallway intensified. Everyone was looking and pointing in the same direction, anxious expressions on their faces. The windows in the hallway rattled as if they were being hit by a fierce gate.
はい。そうです。私の妹です。はい。わかりました。
At last, Yua bowed her head as if the person she was speaking to was in front of her, then hung up the phone. Then she looked up and directed her gaze toward where everyone was pointing, beyond the window.
空が。
Oh no. Oh no. Oh shit. Shit's going down. It was as if a seal of white paint had coated the surface of a grand lake. The sky, which had previously been filled only by its light blue color, was turning white. The white was spreading at an impossible speed. It bled rapidly across the sky, eroding each and every speck of blue it could find.
白く染まっていく。
Oh! Well, I shall be seeing y'all next time then. Goodbye.